Hey everybody, and welcome back to another book review. So I just finished a new to me author, Chang, and her book, The Library of Legends. It's a very interesting book, and it does match what I usually like reading, which is historic fiction, so that's good. But this actually would kind of probably more fall in like historic fantasy as well, because there's some weaving in of ancient Chinese myth and stories, and so it kind of goes all together, but like still living with the reality of everything. So the book is about a girl named Leanne, and she is a college student, or it's kind of hard to tell exactly how old she is, but like I'm guessing based on the way that things were described in the book, she was probably about 18, 19, 20. And so in this story, she is one of the many students who is forced to evacuate her university during the second Chinese-Japanese War, which is kind of like right at the start of World War II. And here in America, we don't really talk about anything that happens in Asia during World War II, unless you're like a historian. So a lot of this information was very new to me. Like I knew that the war happened, but I just thought it was, like a bunch of, Japanese people tried to invade, didn't work out very well, and then the communists happened. Like that's kind of how everything is always kind of described and talked about. But this story kind of really gave it a little bit more life. So this was a real thing that happened. China did evacuate a lot of their universities, or all of their universities and middle schools, so that they would be protecting the next generation, more or less, because they were like the people that have education and intelligence. They're the ones that are going to have to run this country after this war, because most of us will probably be dead. So it's just a very interesting concept, and such a high respect and regard for the youth that were, moving and trying to get an education, and like their plans as the government to protect that. Very interesting concept. And so that was kind of interesting to learn about. And then also, the author, she talks about this in her author's note, but and in her dedication, but her father was actually one of these youths that was evacuated from his school. He was in Nanking. He went to university in Nanking, and Nanking was arguably like one of, I did like some quick research, because again, like I had never heard most of this stuff. Nanking was just wild. And so apparently when the Japanese invaded, they not only just like raided the town, but they also committed like mass rape. And so that was just really wild to read about. I did not know any of this. I've never been super interested beyond just like the flow of dynasties, because like as a seventh grade social studies teacher, that's really all I teach. I've never really been interested in Asian history, but this has kind of gotten me interested in learning a little bit more about Asian history, and that's more, like modern Asian history. So that was just very interesting to have the author kind of share that piece of her own heritage. So that was really cool. So anyway, back to the point. So Leanne, she is forced to leave her university, and while they're leaving the university, the students are tasked with moving a really large encyclopedia set, which in this book is the Library of Legends, also based on a true thing. Apparently there was a huge Chinese history encyclopedia set that was moved, that was like 70,000 volumes, or like some astronomical number of volumes. So in this book it's only like 150 or something like that. But the kids are tasked with moving this giant encyclopedia of ancient Chinese myths and folklore and all these stories that they've all grown up with, relating to the Chinese gods and all that stuff. And so as they're moving, Leanne keeps seeing these like bright lights and these figures, and she's like, I'm dreaming. I'm clearly dreaming. I'm, exhausted. I've been traveling, because they have to like walk most of this. Occasionally they do get like to ride on a train or ride in like a wheelbarrow or something, but like most of this is walking, and this is walking thousands of miles. And so she really thinks that she's going insane. And then in this story, keeps being kind of hinted at and brought up by her professor, Professor King. And this story is called the Willow Star and the Prince, which is not a real myth, but it's based on loosely on a Chinese myth. And so in this story, there is a star and a prince, and they fall in love, and unfortunately the prince dies unexpectedly. It's never really clear, because like they talk about how like myths and stories change over time. Like the more that they're told, there's always something a little different. So there's a lot of different versions of this story, this myth in the story. And so this Willow Star or whatever, she is kind of left on her own, but she really, really loves this prince. And so she goes to the mother of heaven, the queen god or whatever, the highest goddess, and she's like, can you in his reincarnation, because they believe in reincarnation, of course, like as he's being reincarnated, like I want him to live a perfect life, and I want to be able to have him live the life that he was already living. And so the queen mother is like, oh yeah, that's fine. And basically makes it so that he always gets reincarnated basically at the level that he was, which is kind of like a prince. And so in the story, in this life's reincarnation, or the reincarnation of 1937, the character is Xiao, and he's a very wealthy kid, but he's like the third son, and he's in college just because he was told to go to college. And so he really doesn't feel like he has a purpose to his life. He's just kind of floating through life and just kind of doing things. And he is a nice person. He's, cared for. And the Willow Star is his personal servant named Sparrow. And so no one really kind of understands their relationship. They're like, yo, what is up with this Sparrow chick? But like they've all just kind of accepted that Sparrow is always around, and that she works at the university as a servant and all that. And so anyway, so throughout the story, you find out that they are the Willow Star and the Prince, and they've obviously been reincarnated. But the issue is that the Prince has no memory of this, and he will never have a memory of it, because as Sparrow says later in the story, she's like, the gods have their own plans, and she is not she's immortal, but she's not a true goddess. And so she talks about how like she just didn't listen to what she was asking. And so, she asked for him to live a perfect life. And so in every life, he's lived a perfect life. But as long as she is on Earth, living kind of a human life to try and be with him, he will never feel like he has a purpose. He will never be able to fall in love with anybody else. And so Leanne is starting to fall in love with him. And he can never really reciprocate that, because it's just always weird. He's like, yeah, no, she's just a friend. And Sparrow realizes and knows that the reason that he will never fall in love with Leanne, even though it's clearly obvious he wants to, is because she's still in existence on the Earth. And so eventually at the end of the story, Sparrow does decide to follow the Library of Legends. And the reason that that's important is because by moving the Library of Legends, it allows the gods and the river spirits and all the things that were still in China to leave and go and return to heaven. And so she's like one of the last immortals to leave. And so, she kind of leaves a lot of different notes, except that she can't tell Xiao that she's leaving. She can't tell the prince, that she's leaving. She just disappears. but she does so that he can truthfully love Leanne and actually live a decent life. So all of that to say, it's a very interesting book. Really do like it. I think my biggest hang up is the way that it's written. You kind of jump between different like perspectives, and it just didn't coherently flow together to me. Like the concept was really good. And I really like the idea of, you know, using Chinese myth, because we never hear about Chinese myth, and using a lot of other like world historic events and kind of melding them together and kind of using it as like a reason that China has struggled, the reason that China fell to communism and all these things. Like it's all in the book, and it's all related to the fact that all these deities left China. Like really interesting concept. Love that. And like I said, love the historic side of it as a history nut. Like love that. I don't know. It just didn't really connect. It took me a very long time to read this book. I started this book in January. It is now April. Like I started this book in January and I could not get past the first 3 pages. Like I was like, it's just not clicking. Like and that was in 3 pages. And we here in Indiana have had terrible tornadoes that came through, and so we were out of school today, so I was like, I have nothing to do, I'm gonna sit here and get this book done. And so I did, and like now I understand why it was just taking me forever to get through it. It's weirdly written, and I cannot explain it more. It's not bad grammar. There's a couple times where it's bad grammar, but like there's just something just off about it, and I don't know what it is. But like it was just written like not coherently, just kind of jumping around. There was a lot of like things and elements, especially when you get to the end of the story, when everything kind of comes together and you just like really are rooting for the characters, but you also are like, I'm missing like the connective pieces that these characters had with other side characters. And you know, the reason that they make the actions and the choices that they do overall, like big umbrella, make sense, but like in the scope of the way the story was written, they do not make sense. And so that was just kind of really hard to handle and to understand. So because of that, I give it a 3, and not much more than that. You know, just like, you know, I kind of want to give it more just because of the concept and everything, but like it's just not, it just wasn't hitting for me. So yeah, other people might really like this, especially if you do like historic fiction, as always. If you want another take on World War II, because I am a huge World War II nut, we know that. But this just gives like a whole different section of the world perspective on World War II. And so that was really, really cool. And I love that part of it. But yeah, so there you have it. Library of Legends by Janie Chang. So go check it out at your local library. This is a recent publication too. I think it's 2020. So decently recent publication. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you feel and so choose. And of course, always feel free to drop and share some other stories that you think I would be interested in. And I will talk to you in the next book review. Bye!